Jiu-Jitsu is the OG BJJ YouTuber. He's been at this game for a decade. His transparent and raw video style is incredibly successful, and at one point, he's been all of our older, wiser Jiu-Jitsu brother. But I've got a bone to pick. Jiu-Jitsu recently released a video called Why This No-Gi World Champ Avoids Sport-Specific Lifting for BJJ. I put a link to the original video in the description. Chewy's main criticism is that social media is full of charlatans trying to sell you into a sport-specific BJJ training program.
So the reason why I don't do sport-specific lifting is I think most of it's just bullshit, right? Most of the functional fitness and sport-specific stuff, I think is bullshit, right?
What is sport-specific training? Sport-specific training means doing the actual sport. Non-sport specific training means that you're doing training outside of your sport to support your performance on the mats and for injury prevention. The idea of non-sport specific training is doing any training that is not actually your sport and seeing the benefits that it has on your performance and on injury prevention. Sport specific is a term that is misappropriated, and to be fully transparent, I have personally been guilty of this as well. The reason that many social media influencers and online coaches pitch the sport-specific training to sell their programs is that's what people want and expect to see. Scientific literature on strength training for performance and on injury prevention, specifically for Jiu-Jitsu, is on non-sport specific training. For example, take this research paper by Carsten Overtveit from the Norwegian University of Science and Technology, who investigated the effect of high intensity non-sport specific strength and conditioning for Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu athletes. In his video, Chewy takes this one step further and states that you should be wary of someone that is trying to sell you a sport-specific training program.
It's like, oh no, the squat, it's not functional. You need to squat with one leg and while you're doing a press at the same time and you're holding out a cable, and just crazy exercises.
This take could not be more correct. He's 100% correct on this take. It's an issue that I often face myself. There's a massive difference between selecting exercises that have the best or most optimal transferability to the mats in terms of developing practical strength and power, and exercises that target common weak areas of mobility, for example, and other issues that are faced by Jiu-Jitsu athletes, versus movements that look cool and look like they're great for Jiu-Jitsu. Or even worse yet, the absolute worst offender of this is exercises that look like Jiu-Jitsu techniques. Prime example of this is the Turkish get-up. The Turkish get-up is often crowned as the king of functional movements and amazing for Jiu-Jitsu athletes. In reality, it's no more than a mediocre shoulder strength exercise with a bit of core activation and stability. I have not seen any research to suggest that the Turkish get-up is more effective than an overhead press for shoulder strength. In his video, Chewy goes on to explain that he has 4 key aspects to his training philosophy: injury prevention, aesthetics, he's got to like the program, and performance. But is this list actually practical? Let's review them one at a time. 1. Injury prevention. 68.8% of grapplers will take at least 2 weeks absence from training due to injury over a 3-year period of grappling. Want to hear something crazy? The higher your belt level, the more likely you are to be injured. This problem is also amplified by age and gender. There is a mountain of evidence on reducing injuries in contact sports. The number one thing that you can do to reduce your risk is strength training. Injury prevention programs that include strength training reduce injuries by at least 40%, as shown by a 2021 study titled A Comprehensive Summary Systematic Reviews on Sports Injury Prevention Strategies. This massive review also found that strength training, proprioception, balance, psychological programs have all been shown to be beneficial, while static stretching in isolation has not. So tick. Well done, Chewy. On the first point, I agree that reducing the risk of injury should be the number one concern for all grapplers. 2. Aesthetics. Training for aesthetics is training like a bodybuilder. Bodybuilder style training means that you're focusing primarily on isolation work by taking most of your sets to failure and operating in that around about that 8 to 12, 15 repetition range. Elements of bodybuilding have their value for jiu-jitsu athletes and shouldn't be thrown out altogether. But I do not recommend bodybuilding programs for grapplers. Issue with bodybuilding training programs is that they focus too much on aesthetics and they often neglect some essential areas of jiu-jitsu performance. Specifically, we're talking about core, grip, carry, rotation, conditioning, stability, and power. Another issue with bodybuilding programs is that they do not account for your total training volume. Jiu-jitsu is a demanding sport that can be rough on your body. You need adequate recovery between your sessions and a program that accounts for your grappling training volume. You'll see incredible muscle development and aesthetics if you're training for strength, power, and performance as a grappler. Gaining more muscle, though, will have incredible performance benefits as well. So getting jacked can translate to the mats. But suppose you are going to follow a hypertrophy program for jiu-jitsu. In this case, I recommend looking for a hybrid style program that accounts for your grappling volume and is designed with a grappler in mind. I cannot disagree with Chewy that aesthetics shouldn't be essential or an important part for you. I just don't really agree with his execution on the idea. 3, I've got to like it. Chewy's third point is the most interesting, that he actually has to like the training program he's following. I have a saying when it comes to following a training program: the best workout program is the one you're willing to do. It's all well and good to buy a training program, but if you're not willing to do the work, what's the point? At that point, it's just mental masturbation. It gives you the feeling that you're doing something to improve your performance. But in reality, if you're not doing the workouts, it doesn't really matter. So Chewy talks about how he's tried to follow some performance-based programs and he didn't enjoy them. He follows a more basic bodybuilder style split, which he finds more enjoyable. In the style of Jiu-Jitsu, I'm going to use an analogy here. It's like in Jiu-Jitsu. Not every technique that you learn in class is going to be super enjoyable for you or your favorite that you adopt straight away. But that doesn't mean you should throw it away entirely, because sometimes it's a fundamental technique that you will need. It's the same with training programs. I often program exercises for myself that I don't enjoy because I know that the benefits outweigh my discomfort. The red hot caveat is that I enjoy following my performance and injury prevention programs. So holistically, I enjoyed the program, but I might not enjoy certain elements of it. As a closing thought on this point, I would say that if you have a boring training program, or if you just don't enjoy your program to the point where you're not actually training in the first place, then you need to change things up. But don't use this as an excuse to only do bicep curls or to just skip leg day entirely because you don't enjoy it. So all in all, I kind of agree with Chewy on this one, but there's a massive caveat that sometimes you've just got to do the things that make you uncomfortable. 4, performance. Chewy points out that the reason performance is at the bottom of his list is he sees performance aspects of a training program as less important to him personally than injury prevention, aesthetics, and his personal enjoyment. I believe that if you follow a well-structured, evidence-based training program for grappling performance, you'll experience a crossover of injury prevention and aesthetics. How enjoyable this style of training is for you depends on the creativity of the program, the structure of the program, and of course, your subjective view of what is enjoyable. All in all, I give Chewy's programming philosophy a B+. While I agree with some of his points and he does raise some practical considerations for most people, I think that some of his points need to be expanded upon and clarified and have a couple of caveats in place. But his primary concern and his primary message of the video is very accurate, and that is to be wary of people selling you exercises that look like jiu-jitsu techniques, because most of the time it's complete bullshit.